Your cat hears your voice and tracks exactly where you are in the house, even when they can't see you. Here is the science behind that. You probably talked to your cat. Maybe not this second, but you did it today. You told them good morning in a voice you do not use with any other living creature. You narrated something out loud, a task, a complaint, a small observation about the weather, and directed it at them as if they were going to respond. You said their name when they walked into the room for no reason other than that they were there and you wanted to acknowledge it. And your cat looked at you, or they didn't. And you assumed, as most people do, that the looking or the not looking meant roughly the same thing, that they registered a sound, that they processed it about the way a wall does. The science says something completely different. Researchers have found that what actually happens inside a cat's brain when you speak to them, what they recognize, what they ignore on purpose, and what they are doing when they appear to be doing nothing, is one of the most surprising findings in the last decade of animal cognition research. And once you understand it, you will never talk to your cat the same way again. Let's start with the question most people don't think to ask. Does your cat actually know their own name? The obvious answer feels like no. You have called your cat's name 1,000 times and watched them fail to respond. They were sitting right there. You know they heard you. And they looked at the wall instead. But here is what the research actually shows. In 2019, Atsuko Saito and her team at the University of Tokyo, now Sophia University, published a study in Scientific Reports, directly testing if domestic cats could distinguish their names from other words. They used a method called habituation-dishabituation. Cats were played 4 similar-sounding words, one after another, until they stopped reacting, the behavioral equivalent of tuning something out. Then, on the 5th word, researchers played the cat's actual name. What happened next changed the way scientists think about feline cognition. Cats showed a measurable rebound in attention, ear movement, head orientation, pupil response. Even cats who had become completely unresponsive to the preceding words showed consistent, distinguishable reactions when their own name was presented. They recognized the sound as distinct. They recognized it as their own name. What does this mean for your cat? It means that every time you have said their name in an empty room, in a whisper, in the middle of a sentence that wasn't directed at anyone, your cat filed it. They built a neurological association between that specific sequence of sounds and something that concerns them. Not because they were taught to, not because they were trained, because they were paying attention when you thought they weren't. The cat that ignores you when you call their name is not a cat who doesn't know it. It is a cat who has decided, in that specific moment, that acknowledging you is not worth the effort. That distinction matters more than it might seem at first. In 2013, Saito and her colleague Kazutaka Shinozuka recorded 20 cat owners calling their cats names the way they normally would. Not a formal command, just how you actually call a cat, with whatever particular inflection and pitch and warmth ends up in your voice when you are doing it. They then played those recordings for each cat, along with recordings of 4 strangers calling the same name in the same way. The cats heard the strangers first. They habituated. They stopped responding. By the 3rd stranger's voice, most cats showed almost no reaction at all. And then their owner's voice came through the speaker. Ear orientation, head movement, pupil dilation. Measurable, consistent, statistically significant. But the cats did not move toward the speaker. They did not vocalize. They did not get up. And the researchers drew a conclusion that initially looks like an insult, but is actually something much more interesting. Cats recognize their owner's voice. They recognize it clearly, measurably, and distinctly from the voices of strangers. And then, in many cases, they choose not to act on that recognition. What does this mean for your cat? Dogs have been selected by humans over thousands of years specifically for behavioral responsiveness to human cues. A cat, as we covered in our last video, largely selected itself. What that means behaviorally is that a cat's relationship to your voice is governed not by compliance, but by evaluation. Every time you speak, your cat is running a calculation. Is this relevant to me right now? Is the cost of responding worth it? The cat who looks at you when you call their name and then doesn't move has not failed to understand you. They have understood you completely. They have weighed your request against whatever else they were doing, and your request did not win. That is not indifference. That is cognitive appraisal. And if you have a cat who always comes when you call them, stay with me. Because there is a specific reason for that, and the science behind it is one of the most touching things in this entire video. If you're new here, subscribe now. We explore the science of cat behavior weekly. Now, I need to tell you something about the voice you use when you talk to your cat. Because you probably do not talk to them in your normal voice. Nobody does. And if you have ever felt slightly embarrassed about the pitch you hear yourself using, the slightly raised register, the extended vowels, the questions directed at a creature who cannot answer them in words, here's what the research says about that. You are not being irrational. You are being recognized. In 2022, Charlotte de Mouzon's team at the University of Paris-Nanterre studied whether cats could distinguish between cat-directed and human-directed speech. They recorded cat owners speaking in two modes: the natural, slightly elevated, affectionate speech people tend to use with cats, what researchers call cat-directed speech, and the normal, adult-directed speech those same owners used when talking to other people. Then they played both recordings for the cats. But here's what made this study different from previous ones. They also played recordings of strangers using cat-directed speech. The cats responded to their owner's cat-directed speech. They showed increased attention, movement, engagement, measurable behavioral shifts. They did not respond to strangers using the same register. Not because they couldn't hear the difference in pitch, because the voice telling them they are a good boy, or narrating the weather, or saying their name in that particular tone, that voice only means something when it comes from the specific person whose voice they have cataloged as safe. What does this mean for your cat? The way you talk to your cat is not a habit you developed. It is a communication system that your cat trained you into over the years of living together, whether you realized it was happening or not. And your cat responds to it not because of the sounds themselves, but because of whose sounds they are. You are not talking to a creature that hears noise. You are talking to a creature that hears you. If this is already changing something about how you see those one-sided conversations you have been having for years, hit like and subscribe. We put this level of research into every video, and the next one, about how cats experience the people they love in their final days, is going to stay with you. Beyond recognizing your voice, your cat is building a map. In 2021, a research team led by Saho Takagi at Kyoto University published a study in PLOS ONE that revealed something about feline cognition that had never been documented before. They tested 50 cats using what researchers call a teleportation paradigm. A cat was placed alone in a room. They heard their owner's voice calling their name from a speaker outside the room. The voice established the owner's location in the cat's mind. Then, a short time later, the same voice called the cat's name again, but from a speaker inside the room. Different location, same voice. The cats showed a measurable surprise response, ear orientation toward the unexpected location, sustained attention, the specific behavioral signature of something that doesn't fit a prediction. They were not confused because they heard an unfamiliar sound. They were surprised because the location of the sound violated a mental model they had already built, a model of where their owner was. What does this mean for your cat? Right now, as you move through your home, your cat is tracking you, not visually, not by watching you walk from room to room, by listening, by maintaining, moment by moment, a spatial map of where you are relative to where they are. This is not instinct in the way breathing is instinct. It is a cognitive process. It requires working memory. It requires your cat to hold a mental representation of you when you are not present in their field of vision. The researchers concluded that cats possess what they called sociospatial cognition, the ability to mentally map the location of a social partner based on sound alone. Your cat knows where you are. They have always known where you are. The next time you move from one room to another and your cat appears a moment later for no apparent reason, that is not coincidence. That is a navigation system that has been tracking your movements since before you knew it was running. Stay with me, because there is one more layer to this. One specific behavior you have almost certainly noticed, but probably never connected to what I just told you. And it changes everything. There is a sound your cat makes that is not entirely a purr. If you have ever heard it, you probably felt it before you understood it. It is the purring that happens when your cat wants something, not the deep, slow purr of a sleeping cat on your lap, but the active purr that seems to have a different quality, an edge to it, a frequency embedded in the center of it that you cannot quite tune out, even when you are trying to sleep. That is not an accident. What the solicitation purr actually is. In 2009, researchers at the University of Sussex, led by Karen McComb, published a study in Current Biology that identified what they called the solicitation purr, a purring vocalization that cats use specifically when they want something from their owners. What makes this sound neurologically unusual is what is embedded inside it. Within the frequency of the purr, cats produce a secondary acoustic component in the range of an infant's cry, a frequency that human auditory processing is evolutionarily primed to respond to. The researchers found that people, including people who had no experience with cats, rated this purr as significantly more urgent and harder to ignore than a regular purr, even when they could not consciously identify what was different about it. Cats developed this sound not through training and not by accident. It emerged over the centuries of living alongside humans, shaped by the simple fact that the cats who could produce it got fed more reliably. What does this mean for your cat? It bypasses your conscious thought, tapping into an ancient, less negotiable part of your nervous system, the hardwired response to infant distress. When your cat uses this purr and you find yourself standing at the kitchen cabinet before you made a conscious decision to get up, that is not your cat manipulating you. That is 10,000 years of co-evolution producing a sound so precisely calibrated to the human nervous system that it was never going to lose. Your cat did not learn to communicate with you. They were shaped over generations to communicate with something exactly like you. What we have covered. Your cat knows their name and chooses when to respond to it. Your cat recognizes your voice specifically, not just human voices. Your cat responds to the way you talk to them, but only when it is you. Your cat is tracking your location through sound right now. The solicitation purr embeds a frequency designed for the human nervous system. Now, the thing I want to leave you with. If your cat has always come when you called them, not sometimes, but consistently, reliably, in the particular way that some cats do, you have probably wondered what you did differently from the people whose cats never respond. The science suggests it is not training, it is trust. The 2013 study found that the cats who moved toward their owner's voice, rather than simply orienting and staying still, were disproportionately represented in securely attached relationships. The behavioral response to a voice is not a trick. It is a measure of something that has been built over time through interactions that made your presence feel safe enough to move toward. Your cat does not come when you call them because they were taught to. They come because the sound of your voice has been associated, through hundreds or thousands of small moments, with something that feels like safety. And the cat who doesn't move, who hears their name and stays exactly where they are, is still running the same system, still recognizing you, still tracking you through the house, still responding to your cat-directed speech with the particular attention they give to nothing else. They are just evaluating whether this specific moment is worth the response. That evaluation, it turns out, is one of the most sophisticated cognitive operations in the domestic animal world. And it has been happening every time you opened your mouth in a room where your cat was present. What is actually happening right now? So the next time you narrate something out loud to no one in particular, and your cat glances up from across the room, remember what you now know is happening. They heard the stranger's voices and let them go. They hear yours and track it through every room. They have built a map of you that exists in their mind even when you are out of sight. And when you speak to them in the voice you only use for them, that particular pitch and warmth that belongs to no conversation you have ever had with any other living thing, they know it is you before they have decided whether to show it. That's not a cat ignoring you. That's a cat who has been listening to you since day one. If this changed how you hear those one-sided conversations, subscribe and leave a comment below. I want to know one thing. Does your cat come when you call them?